PokerStatic.com. We bring you the interviews you want to hear. Now with your hosts, Bret Oliverio and Eric Bickel, the Poker Static Hot Seat.
What's up? Welcome to a brand new edition of the Poker Hot Seat. Bret Oliverio, Eric Bickel, and our guest tonight, Rob Eckstut. Of course, you might know him on 2+2 as BobboFitos. What's happening, Rob?
Hey, what's up, Bret?
Now,
Eric.
Now, where exactly are you? I know you're in the process of possibly buying a home, but where exactly are you right now?
I am in Medford, Mass., which is just outside of Boston. For the past 3 years, I've lived in Cambridge, so Medford is a little bit further away from Boston than I'd like. But, yeah, that's where I am at the moment. Probably not for too long, but we'll see. Hopefully not for too long.
Now, Rob, what is your sort of claim to fame? You know, Billy said you got to interview BobboFitos. He's the first guy to really kind of revolutionize e-books. I think you put your first book out there, and you had the balls and the foresight to say, you know what, I'm not going to charge $20. My book's worth $750, whatever it is. I know that our buddy Billy played with you a lot. You know, grinded through the stakes a few years ago. Is that sort of your claim to fame, though? Coaching. I read on Lego you're the godfather of online coaching.
That was not my idea to use that adjective or that description. I think that was a Greg Brooks original, which kind of cool moniker. But yeah, I guess I was the first ebook for the most part. Sort of before all others started following suit for the most part, charging what seems like a high price, but really when you boil down a coaching hourly versus the book itself, which contains technically many hours of coaching, it made sense. So yeah, that was, I think I came, it's been out for, 3.5 years at this point, a long time. I can't really believe that to some extent. But, yeah, I guess that was probably in terms of the poker world, that's probably what my biggest accomplishment, I would say. So maybe my only accomplishment, I don't know. But certainly, yeah, that's been the book.
Now, how exactly did it sell? Did it sell as well as you were hoping for it to, or was it slow and then it picked up? How exactly did that go?
At the time when I sort of released it, I didn't really have any expectations. It hadn't been done before. This was brand new to a large extent. So my goal really was just to, rather than, because all these people were coming up to me for coaching, and I didn't really have enough technically hours in the day to really accommodate all of them. So I figured rather than, do my one-on-one coaching, I could just lump sum as a book and sell it off that way, thereby sort of making money without doing any coaching. And hopefully, hopefully the student learns quite a bit from the book as well, so fairly symbiotic in that sense. It sold pretty well. I would say the first 2 years were great. Last year, not as much, largely because for the first 2.5 years, it was completely protected. It was very much protected information and, for the most part, not well known. Now, however, there's not only just competitors, and again, maybe their book, are on the same level, perhaps better, perhaps worse. I'm not really sure. But due to torrents and so forth, it's very difficult to kind of stay competitive in terms of being able to sell it. So I'm not really sure what direction I'm going to kind of go next with it. But I am thinking about doing one sort of final re-release for kind of a lower amount of money. This way to just kind of skirt around torrents and so forth and just be done with it. Because the one thing I did was I kind of left like this little addendum or so forth saying like, oh, whenever I update something, I'll tack it onto the book, which I've done over the past 3 years. I've added to it. But I think there's not really a market for it anymore because it's hard to sell now that there's torrents and so on and so forth. So I don't really think I'm going to continue to update it anymore.
Well, what happened between like this year and 2 years ago? Is it just that people are just more adept at sort of hacking into things, or is there a security measure that you didn't take?
No, everybody had their own security measures. Both I know Tree has gone through this. I don't know if the other guys who've written books to the same extent if they've gone through it. I imagine they have. But yeah, basically, it's not so much hacking as it is just being able to essentially buying it or grasping it somehow and just sharing it with everybody on a peer-to-peer network. I would say the big difference is last year it was very much privileged information. It was very few people had it. This year, or throughout the past year, it's been far more readily accessible. And the truth is, the reason why the price tag was so much is it was poker strategy and so forth, which especially 3 years ago, 2 years ago, last year, not as much, but still applies, was very cutting edge, or at least certainly very new. And I'd like to think because I spent a lot of time and work in terms of putting the theory into it, advanced. But now, again, because of other resources out there and the amount that so much knowledge is out there for free, it's just not worth as much now, which it kind of pains me to admit in certain ways, but that's kind of the way it is.
Well, let's jump into your poker story a little bit, and I don't know if this is accurate. I assume it is. I read a little of it on your well and a little of it on your bio on Lego, but you started out the classic story. You're playing play money on Poker Stars or whatever. I mean, I don't know if this is accurate, and somehow you built it up to like $1 million, and then somebody, as far as I'm concerned, was stupid enough to give you $10 for it. I mean, I don't even know who would want that. And then
why would anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have the wherewithal to then turn that money into playing the 1 cent, 2 cent game, and just grind it up to where you are today, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of I've never deposited money onto a poker site, which is kind of bizarre. But I think 2000. Yeah, basically I was able to sell the play money chips. It was great, and I'm still on that initial $10 or so, which is I'm thrilled about that. But
how did you
and then
go ahead? How did you move your way up the stakes? I mean, obviously you just played a lot and you learned on your own. What year is this, by the way? So you're 24 now, going to be 25 in a month. How old were you at the time, and how were you learning as you were playing? Were you exchanging hand histories with the guys on 2+2 at the very beginning, or did you just have buddies that played with you? Was there training sites around at that time?
No, training sites weren't around at all. Basically, what I did is I would say I played a lot of micro stakes that first year. I started a senior year in high school, so 2004, and so I guess I've been playing online for 6+ years, almost 7 now. Yeah, basically I played micro stakes for a fair amount. Then I got kind of lucky and I won a tournament, a small tournament, which kind of propelled the role both on PokerStars and at the time Party, which was accessible for Americans. So that kind of got everything started. I would say that those two things got the ball rolling, playing a fair amount of cash and then just kind of banking a multi-table tournament. Of course, now I haven't won a tournament in a long time. I also don't really play them that often, but I guess I used up my luck kind of early in my career.
Right.
So yeah, basically, yeah, I mean, really, it would be nice to use up a little bit more now, in the World Series or so forth, but yeah, basically, I got better by just extensive. When I'm into something, I really get into it. And so with poker, I spent, through 2004 to 2006, like literally every waking hour, whether if I was in class or so forth, just kind of jotting down situations and kind of analyzing hands I could have, hands my opponent could have. I was kind of doing a lot of combinatoric things. I was documenting everything I was doing. And so in addition to posting, strategy, responding to hands on 2+2, heavily analyzing my hands. Sure.
So you were obsessed with poker, and you graduated high school, and you went away to school. But I read that you sort of burned through 3 different schools. Why don't you sort of walk us through what college was like for you as you were jumping from school to school?
Yeah, I guess in a lot of ways it's kind of it's some ways kind of like a low light. Although things were working and with poker, so financially things were going well. I felt like I was getting better. I really was learning. It was very much challenging my mind. At the same time, I wasn't really doing well in school. I wasn't focusing on studies. I started at RPI, which is a pretty study intensive school. Didn't do well. It didn't really develop a lot of friends. So what college in my mind was all about. So then I transferred. I went to I actually lived in Boston for a short amount of time. Funny enough, actually, where I live right now, I actually was staying at Tufts for a little while, which is also in Medford, Mass. Yeah, and so then I went to back kind of closer to home, a school called Fairfield University. It did okay, but didn't really buy into it. Didn't really develop sort of the college mentality. I was playing a lot of poker at this time, which is kind of a double-edged sword. It's like I really love the game. It really served me well I've lived off it, so that's been a real positive. At the same time, I kind of didn't have the college experience that I really kind of wanted. And then I went up to Marin, which is a community college in the West Coast, and that was okay. So I've done 3 years, but technically, if I was to go back, I don't know if I will, perhaps, but I'd have to spend 2 years at a school. Really, my college experience was not really a positive. I felt like certain classes I was really interested in weren't really that challenging. I don't know. It was things sort of I was doing on my own were far more interesting to me, both at the time and of course now as well.
What about the party aspect of things? Were you not the real partier? I mean, we know you're really into watching basketball and sort of analyzing, pro hoops. But what about just going out?
Right.
Did you have any desire to do that while you were in school, or was it just poker focused?
Yeah, of course. That's fun stuff to do. The shame, I guess, is RPI is just not a partying school, so I didn't get a flavor of that at all my freshman year. My sophomore year, Fairfield was a little bit more of a party scene to an extent, but it was I just didn't really. At that time was kind of the time when I was most into poker. So now, my choices are between poker, going out. I choose going out every time, basically. Then it was the opposite. And really, then it was I can stay in, play hands, or like analyze stuff, or go out. Easy decision. So I guess in certain ways, I've grown as a person, changed in some ways, I guess. But yeah, and then Marin, it's not really that type of environment or school. So plus at that time, I had a girlfriend, which sort of prevented me from really going out very much, which was a good thing, I think. I don't know.
Well,
but, basically.
I want to ask you more about, and just touch on, I'm sorry, about the basketball thing, because Bret is he's not really doing it justice. This is not just like sort of like a really hardcore fan. This is an obsession that you seem to have with basketball.
Yeah, it's my life.
Yeah, and with statistics and everything, and I went through some of your video blogs and some of the just the blog entries and the stats that this guy does, breaking down games. I know you're into sports betting. I know you have a buddy that eventually I think was hired by the Raptors to maybe do some scouting work. When I've worked in sports radio for 15 years, and I looked at some of your entries and I go, well, this guy was born to be a scout. I mean, this guy's he's barking up the wrong tree. Where did your obsession with basketball begin? Did you play in high school? Have you played any in college? And then the statistical angle, is it simply for betting, or is it just how you absorb sports?
Yeah, well, I love basketball. I think it's in many ways like a beautiful game. I actually didn't play in high school. I was a wrestler. Now, sort of in high school, wrestling was a big part of my life. Spent a lot of time on it. It's another sport that you can really kind of obsess over. It's all about sort of you against another person, which really fits my bill. Same way with tennis, actually, when it's like that way against another person, which I'm really into tennis as well. But so yeah, I didn't play basketball in high school, and it's only really the past 4 years or so that I've really gravitated towards that in terms of, playing various leagues, playing all the time, pick up, so forth, that I really love the game. It just, I guess going back real fast, high school, I wasn't really good enough to play. The school was decently competitive, and so I figured, wrestling, I'd be able to actually do it, and I really loved that. So that kind of worked out that way. In terms of the NBA, yeah, I mean, this is for the most part my life. I would say I spend probably more than almost everybody else in terms of watching games. And I league pass. I generally watch about 30 hours of basketball a week, oftentimes more. I TiVo games, watch them later. Sometimes watch, games coming back again, so forth. I just love it. I mean, it's hard to again, it's odd kind of explaining obsessions really to other people, but it's like I just can't get enough of it. And as far as the as far as the analysis and so forth, I through poker, I come from a very statistical background, so it's very natural for me to see something and want to understand, how things work, how things, go, point A to point B. Why is something working? Why is something not working? So I would say the past 2 years, 2.5 years, I've been focused. A lot of the energy that I spent on poker, not that I haven't gotten better at poker. I hope sort of every day, you either get better or worse at something. But my poker growth has been stymied to an extent, and a lot of that work has really gone into basketball. The season before last, I took a much more active sports bettor. again with my friend who's since been hired as a quantitative analyst, which is a great boon to him. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. He's a brilliant basketball mind for sure. But so last year I actually didn't do that much sports betting because I'm not much of a programmer, whereas he handled all the programming. So because our betting revolved around a betting model, it's difficult to really do that without access to the model. The NBA has very strict guidelines that when you work with a team, you cannot do any gambling of any such. So he made the pretty easy decision. Okay, I can either work for the team or keep betting. Well, I'd much rather break in with the team, so he had to cut out the gambling, which made sense. But then again, of course, the extension of that means that I was cut off too, which is okay. But
bad beat.
Yeah, exactly. It's somewhat of a beat because it's a decent source, for a small amount of supplementary income, I guess. But regardless, though, I guess sort of studying the game, the different stats, some that are commonly known, others that are not as easy in terms of accessible. That luckily I have access to various databases or so forth. So I mean, hopefully that kind of goes in there. I'm not sure, but
why do you do it? Why?
Let's know. I just love the game. So.
Is it because you love the game, or do you want to follow in your buddy's footsteps and maybe get a job with a professional team? Like, why obsess over it day in and day out? Why crunch these numbers?
That's a good question. It's like it is a good question because 2 years ago, certainly I could say, well, I'm making money off it. It's a hobby that I love, and I'm also making money off it. So that's like a total win-win. Clearly, that's not really the case anymore. I am doing the past month. I've been extensively doing kind of like win projections and so forth. In the event that I bet any futures. Not sure if I will. They haven't been released yet, but that's certainly there's some EV in that. But yeah, I guess the question is, what do I really want to do with it? I'm not sure. I don't think I have the skills to follow in my friend's footsteps, only because I'm not nearly the programmer that he is. Plus, I mean, I'll be the first to admit he knows more about the game than me. I wouldn't say that about most, but he's just a brilliant basketball mind. So would that interest me? To an extent, sure, but I don't think that's sort of the end goal. It certainly would be nice, but I don't think that's my motivation, I guess.
But you know what? You guys are kind of onto something, because this is kind of like the Moneyball effect from baseball that happened, 10 years ago. It's now even drifting into all the other sports, including basketball. I think even the Houston Rockets, you would know maybe even better than I, their general manager is big into the stats and all of that. So there are definitely opportunities. Eventually, you could run your own franchise. Forget about the scouting department and quantitative analysis.
Sure.
You could do the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. That I would love, and in a second I would do that. Unfortunately, no one's really come around offering me a job to be the GM or so, but maybe one day.
It might happen.
Where do you see the Miami Heat? Are they going to break the Chicago Bulls record? Are they going to win 72+ games? Really?
Yeah, I don't think they will this year. This is certainly going to be on the level, sort of, when you talk about GOAT teams, greatest of all time. This team is up there. I don't think they'll do it this year. Right now. Last time I looked at the different future in terms of them versus the field and having the best record, something like plus 169 or minus 169, something crazy that they're just they're a nice majority favorite to have the best record in the league. And at this point, I think both the smart money and my own insight is that they're, I don't want to say they're a lock, but they'll probably be the best team in the league next year. And does that mean they'll win the championship? Not necessarily. There's a small amount of variance in the playoffs, less so in basketball than other sports. But yeah, they're going to be scary. That said, over the next sort of 6 years, the duration of their big threes deal, will they break Chicago record? I would say probably.
Wow.
It's hard to really say. 72 wins is a lot, but yeah, I would say that they're better than even money over the next 6 years to have one season greater than 72 wins.
Wow.
They're that good.
Real quick, just we're based in D.C. and we're all excited about John Wall, and we got Gill back, and Andre Blash had a little bit of a breakthrough.
Yeah, Kirk.
So I mean, we've got some players here that we're accumulating. What do you put us on a win total, over under? What's the number?
I've gone through alphabetically, so I actually haven't really gotten to Washington yet. I've done about half the teams thus far. But my just sort of, so don't hold me on this, but my gut instinct tells me that the Wizards are going to be a lottery team again, which the 7th and 8th playoff seeds in the East are going to be very weak. There's a bunch of teams that can contend for those positions. The only thing about the Wizards is they at least now, they've waltzed. There's definitely a lot of hope in the future, but this year it's going to be kind of bleak. They're going to be giving a lot of minutes to Al Thornton, who's just brutal. I guess it's sad. I do like Kirk Heinrich, but he's not really a difference maker. JaVale McGee is he's already starting to get a little bit overrated. He's just not that good. Same with Andre Blatch. Their team top to bottom, they're just not that good. So it's hard to say it. I hate to be the harbinger of bad news to different fans or so, but yeah, they're going to be in for a pretty brutal season.
Fair enough.
How would you compare yourself to a guy like Haralabos? He's a big NBA guy, sports better, crunches the numbers.
Yeah. I actually think we're very similar. Obviously have the poker background. He's been doing this a fair amount longer, and I think, he has his own, from what I know, he has, I love his blog, for example. I think it's Alone in the Corner. It's a great blog. He obviously knows his area. I believe, he has a team of people as well, different, programmers, extra statisticians that he kind of keeps on staff. We're both actually somewhat active members in it's an advanced basketball stat board. It's called APBR Metrics. So I think in many ways we're similar. He probably he's been tracking the league in terms of he has stats that nobody else has for about 7 years. So he probably has more access than I do in terms of exact situations. But yeah, I would say we're probably very similar. Although again, he's far more accomplished than I am, I would say.
Let's jump back into poker for a second. So you clearly have this obsession, with numbers, and as you say, when you jump into something, you really do. So you jump into poker, you start making some money. When did you have that first moment where you're like, oh my God, that I really just made $5,000 this month or $10,000 this month or whatever it was? Do you have a particular time, and what limits were you playing, and what was that like?
Sort of when I left RPI, I left midway in the second semester, and I went to Boston. I didn't go directly home. I was very much in a state of flux, what am I going to do? Somewhat lost, but I was living with friends, and at that time I was just playing NL 100, so very small stakes really. And it was the kind of thing, a pretty good night is winning 4 or 5 buy-ins, which is only $400 to $500. But at the time, especially to a college student, that was significant. So I would say sort of that much. So that would be 2005, really early 2005, March or something. I don't know. Basically, that would probably be the biggest moment when I was like, oh wow, the money is substantial. This is not small sums of money. Of course now, well, not that I look down on that, of course not, but now I play for more money than that for sure. But that was probably the first moment when I realized, okay, poker is a decent way to make money. That this is certainly, it's not really a pipe dream.
Now, when you started moving up, were you a mass multi-tabler, or did you focus on fewer tables and just going up in higher stakes?
Yeah, the big thing is also when I was really playing early on, there was actually capping the number of tables. If anybody sort of 2004, 2005 really told me oh, I play 16 tables, I would have been in shock. To be honest, I'm not a very good multi-tabler. I think the most I'm really able to play okay is 9, and I probably excel with 6 tables when I'm playing shorthanded, which really is just not that many. I don't, in terms of hands, I play far fewer hands than most other people. Plus I put fewer hours in it, so there you go. Certainly early on in sort of poker career, I definitely focused on fewer tables, better reads, better sort of one-on-one situations, and trying to excel that way. I was pretty aggressive very early on about moving up stakes, especially at the time when losing money just didn't matter. It's oh, what's the worst that can happen? I would say I'm a little more conservative at this point, although I've still taken shots at some pretty big games, which fortunately for me have gone well. But yeah, so that's sort of where I am now, I guess. If that makes sense.
So how much playing, how much coaching, how are you spending your obviously the NBA as well. How are you dividing your time these days?
Well, I guess early on the career, or getting started with poker, when I left school, sort of after RPI, going home, sort of made a little deal with my mom, which was like I wasn't allowed to play poker. She thought it was directly impacting me. Like she thought it was the reason why I left RPI, which probably was correct. But so that's actually when I turned to coaching. At that point, I realized, all right, I wasn't allowed to play, but at least this way I could still stay connected. I could still get better. I could teach others, and that's sort of how the book monasticized, I guess if that's the right word, to an extent. And anyway, I guess throughout last year and this year, I'm playing about. All over the summer was a little bit different. Sort of the World Series, playing a bit of live cash. I played more hours than I normally would, but sort of like, for example, this month, I played like, I guess it's the 11th. I played one session, so hopefully I play more than that. But that's not too far from average. Basically, a session every 10 days, so like 3 a month or so. So maybe 15 hours, 20 hours a month. Really not that much, obviously. I mean, people kind of make fun of that, but it really is low volume. In terms of coaching, the past 2 years, and I'm probably going to start this again, I've done this group coaching, which is basically 2 different groups, 2 hours a week each. And so that's about how much, so I'm coaching about, I'd say, 4 to 5 hours a week. And so I guess in terms of the raw poker, I spend about 10 hours a week tops, like being active in terms of, whether it be coaching or playing. And then the basketball stuff, far outweighs that, both with my, playing either in leagues or pickup, watching games, and so on and so forth. Probably about 3 to 1 or 4 to 1 ratio. Something kind of excessive. Of course, I also spend some time on, I should, promote Lego, of course, legopoker.com. I spend a fair amount of time, posting on my blog or, posting the forums and so on and so forth. That's the, which is, training site that I'm,
right.
part of.
Yeah, definitely want to ask you about Lego, but why play so little at this point? Is it because you're financially secure and you don't need to? Is it because you're game selecting, or you have to have a certain block of time available where you feel comfortable? What's the thought process behind it?
I guess there's 2 things about it. Number one is to an extent it could be called laziness, although I'm not really sure that that's why I'm preventing myself from playing. More so, it's that it's not even game selection. It's more so I only like playing when it's my A game. Sort of when I think I play best when I really want to play. When I kind of force myself to play the different sessions, they don't really go as well. It's kind of, I look at it more, like work essentially. When poker initially and still continues to be fun. I mean, that's the main appeal to me is that okay, yes, making money off it, but at the same time, I'm just enjoying it. I guess. One of the I very much love poker, and I guess the reason is I haven't really burnt out on it because I don't play, as much as all these mass multi-levelers or so forth. If I did that, I probably would lose. It would lose its luster. It would lose its appeal. A lot of situations that I find kind of interesting or so, and again, if they're examined further, it can be kind of interesting spots. Might just turn into just another routine ABC, even if they're not really routine ABC decisions. So. So I guess that's my way of justifying it, I suppose, that I really only like playing my A game, and when I force myself to play, it's B or C game. So, which, again, it's kind of thing, should I still force myself to play? Yeah, probably. But, again, when I'm, given the decision between either, going out, watching basketball, playing basketball, so on and so forth, I always opt for the latter.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, obviously you've played pretty high, and you're probably used to living a certain lifestyle. I mean, you probably got a nice watch on, as I could just see right there. Without getting too personal, are you able to sustain your lifestyle? What kind of lifestyle do you live? Are you able to do that just working a few hours a week in poker? Or is it something where you're sort of living off the money you made when you were killing it back in the day, or from your book? Or, what sort of lifestyle are you living right now?
That's a good question. I'd like to think, because my choice, I like to live a pretty good lifestyle. I don't really. Now the weird thing is I'm not really a spender. There's certain things I like, whether watch or so forth, that I'll spend some money on. But in Vegas it's a little different. Sort of living over the summer, I end up going out to dinner a lot. But here, while I'm around Boston, I cook for myself a fair amount. I don't really spend money on food that often, even though I do like nice restaurants, so on and so forth. My style of living, really, it's not that expensive. So yeah, I'm able to And at the same time, if I really ever want anything, I just buy it, basically, which is a nice way to approach things, I guess. So yeah, in a way of saying it, that I guess I haven't really been, especially the last year. The summer wasn't a great one. Last year didn't really make that much progress. I guess I didn't really take a step forward, but I still was able to kind of stay level, which for like kind of a somewhat down year, that's a nice win, I guess, in my eyes. So I can't really complain about that at all. You know, for example, I am now looking to buy a house. Are there,
Right.
Will that provide motivation to kind of play more, just, pay off a mortgage or so? Probably. I'm hoping. Of course, that would be great. Kind of light a fire under me to an extent. But I have to find something first, which I'm in the process of looking. So we'll see what happens with that.
What I want to ask you about your decision to join Lego. Talk about how you were approached. Were they the first site that approached you? And then, obviously, the question that people get asked that do videos and things of that nature is, okay, how much is this hurting me in the long run to sort of give away my trade secrets here? And I'm sure you evaluated that and talk about the games, how they've changed, that sort of thing. But how were you approached by Lego? How did you decide to work with them and that whole process?
Well, in terms of like the secrets or so forth, I mean, I did, in terms of writing the book, not that it had like everything that I knew about the game, because hopefully I know more than just what's written in the book, but I'm, and through posting on strategy and 2+2, when, especially when people were far more open with strategy, I'm a proponent of open sharing. I think I learn best when other people are kind of open with me and able to kind of divulge their own bits of goodies, so to speak. And in turn, like, the reason it's a win for both of us is I'm able to make them better as well. So I'm not very closed about sort of different strategies or thoughts. If I think something will make someone better, I don't mind sharing it with them. Of course, I didn't really think about that upon joining Lego at the first, the start of things. Oh, will this make my opponents better? And the truth is, yeah, it probably has to a small extent. So I guess that's come back to hurt me a small amount. But that said, due to both volume and own personal hubris, I guess, that doesn't bother me. It's the kind of thing that poker's unique in that the best players have a way of adjusting and outthinking their opponents. Sort of when opponents start doing something a little better, well, you know what? I think to myself, I can do it a little better than they can. So it's the kind of stuff like things that I'm happy to talk about. Both like I have a DVD series as well. Excuse me. And talk about like different pre-flop stuff. I've done a lot of work in terms of this is when it was certainly a lot newer, different like theory with 3-betting, 4-betting. I've done a lot more sort of work on that than most, I guess, and I shared a lot of that information. I still think that even telling my opponents and so on and so forth, yes, it hurts me, but I'm still able to exploit them better than they can exploit me. So in the end, I still expect to make money off them, if that makes sense. Perhaps less so. But also, again, due to volume, it's not as much a concern. Plus, the other thing as well is with trading sites, if I wasn't going to share that information, somebody else probably would. Whether it be the same, a little bit different, perhaps better, who knows? That's possible. So I may as well sort of make money off the trading sites as well. In terms of Lego, it started with, I was one of the original sort of 8 coaches, along with Aaron, A. Jones, Greg, my name is Greg, was the founder, and several other coaches as well. And that was fun. It's been a fun experience. I enjoy it. It's sort of a small, it's a small part sort of my life or so. It should be a larger part. In fact, our big tech guy is named Vitas, really nice guy. He's been on my case about videos. I'm way overdue with a bunch, so I'm sure, I told him, because I just basically moved to this Medford place, I didn't have internet. I'm using an internet card, actually. That was my excuse in terms of not turning in a video. So now that he sees this, I'm sure I'll get, some Skype messages from him telling me to submit my video.
How have the
yeah, that's
I'm sorry. How have the games changed in the last couple years? People always talk about the games toughening, and I know my own experience. I mean, I watched my game just go in the toilet as I upped my tables and I tried to grind a profit and grind rake back, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm actually turning into a losing player here. The games are clearly changing while I'm playing this same style. Do you notice that as being a real situation?
The one thing I forgot to mention as well is my preferred game, for sure is Heads Up. And really the past 2 years to an extent, the whole heads-up mentality and landscape has changed. First off, heads-up tables were a novelty when they were obviously when they were first introduced, they're a novelty. But on Stars, Full Tilt, wherever, and the whole kind of evolution in terms of the term bump hunters and so forth, getting action, really, that's another thing that kind of prevents me from putting in a lot of volume. It's just hard to get games, which is frustrating. And that's something what I prefer. I mean, not that I don't like shorthanded or full ring. I do, but much less extent. I mean, heads up, it's just, again, one person against another. You kind of adapt to your opponent, and it's really a pure thinking game. It's great. So I guess the way the games have changed is now you look at lobbies, and this has been the running joke for perhaps more than a year. There's, both on Stars and Tilt, there'll be, 30 people sitting at 5-10 or so, and maybe one game going. It's a little sick. On a personal level, in terms of challenging others, or wanting to be the best, or at least wanting to get better, when people are kind of backing down from that, it's frustrating. On one extent, you can understand it, I guess. People, if they think that they're not as good, don't want to play the other person. That's their right. But, where's the sort of personalization or so, or, almost the gamesmanship. It's like, why don't people challenge themselves a little bit more? They don't, though. And it's just getting action is difficult. In terms of how I'll change to see, they're not as good as when I first started. One thing as well is I kind of maintain I'm a little bit frustrated that I didn't quite put in the hours then, 2005, 2006. I definitely moved up stakes a bit, but I didn't really, I wasn't, I didn't log a ton of hands. So the games are certainly harder. Hopefully, I know with the new legislation and so forth, it might be another boom that maybe all of a sudden I'll have hours again. We'll see. But the games, I mean, they're profitable though. It's not like they're there to be beaten, I guess. Are people going to just hand you their money? No. But and of course I would like that. But where's the challenge? It's people should take pride in sort of what they do as well and try to be as good as they can. So why not try and be decent players?
How would you compare your raw poker ability to other players? Are you one of these guys who it just sort of came naturally to you and there's not many players that are better than you, or have you outworked players? Just when you started learning the game, like how would you rate that?
It's a good question. A lot of people. I mean, it's bizarre. Some people are very humble, have very sort of not necessarily low opinion, but have a great respect for others. And then there's the whole flip side, other people who think everybody else is terrible, and they just can't imagine how other people win at poker. I probably vacillate between the two. There's some days when I see like mistakes that are being made, and I'm aghast. I say, how are these people big winners? And then on the other end of the spectrum, I see some hands that I would never play in that way, but just worked out beautifully, and you could understand their deep reasoning. And again, it engenders a lot of respect or so, and it amazes me really, which is great. I mean, if I didn't have those moments, then I'd be sad. I'd be playing a game that you'd see mastered when really I haven't. So I guess in terms of my own ability, I mean I'm very confident in live games, for example. Over the summer, I mean I always feel like I'm the best player. And you know what? And if I'm not, that's okay. That's fair enough. But I always perceive myself that way. Perhaps I'm not, but that's it's my own self-confidence that I'm not really. There's a thin line between sort of fearing and respecting your opponents. There are many players that I think are very good, and I have to be aware of sort of what they're capable of, and therefore adjust to the situation if I'm in a hand with them or so forth. But I never think anyone is sort of as good as I am. That said, going forward a little bit, I don't think poker is necessarily just like a raw sport or a game or activity. It's not like there's a prodigy that never plays and all of a sudden they just Aaron uses the expression. He was the first to kind of come up with this in terms of clicking buttons. Which makes sense. I mean, I don't think there's any, button clicker in India or so that is, just better than, the best in the world by just, being, just random sequence of, typing in numbers or so forth. I guess in one extent there could be sort of that amazing player, but poker takes work. It takes sort of learning new strategies, understanding exploitations, sort of different, recognizing hand lines, therefore sort of hand reading, so on and so forth. Yeah, I guess I think it's a learned skill. Most people can become, winning players and good players. Certainly, some people might become better faster, or putting in different dedication, work, and so on and so forth. But I definitely think it's a learned game. Kind of as a corollary to an extent is the past 3 months, so I've gotten really into chess, and it's a tough game. I'm not that good right now. It's really very frustrating. And you can see how people that are very good, yes, they have an amazing natural ability, but they've also put in, a lot of time studying different openings and understanding tactics and so forth. So I understand the comparison between the two. It makes sense to me. In fact, I'm getting far more frustrated losing at chess than I ever do at poker. Poker, you can at least say, all right, it was just bad results, so forth, but I played it well. Whereas chess, if you lose, it's because you're an idiot. So I've been kind of ripping this off for chess lately.
Now you've referenced Aaron a few times throughout this interview, and obviously one of the best players in the world. Just what makes him, sort of on a broad scale, what makes him just such an amazing poker player?
I don't know. Aaron's a very good friend of mine. I'd like to think that I don't know what he's doing that I'm not doing. But clearly he's an amazing poker player. So I'll have to ask him what he's doing that I'm not doing.
What games are you focusing on now? Are you playing a lot of PLO? Are you playing a lot of the mixed games?
I haven't. I'm all right at Omaha High-Low, but I didn't really latch onto the mixed games. The reason for that is I felt like if I was really to take up these games, I'd really want to spend a lot of time learning them, getting good. And the truth is, maybe I'm wrong, but I just didn't see a lot of room for profit in those games. Certainly, they're probably weak, but they just don't run as often. I know they've caught on a little bit more, but so I feel like I'm all right. I can hold my own Omaha High-Low, but the other games, I'm anywhere from bad to terrible. I'm okay at limit hold'em. When I very, very first started, that's what I played. So I feel like competent in most like limit full ring games. Not that I really would ever want to play them. But and then in terms of PLO, it's the same thing. I have not been hands of PLO. I think I'm okay, but look, for example, when I hear hands like Ashman or so forth play, it's like I have no idea what they're doing. So they're clearly better than me. It's like no comparison. So I have not played a lot of PLO hands. I think I'm actually down in PLO, not that much, but a little bit. So it kind of it makes me not want to continue playing PLO, I guess. But anyway, in terms of when I do play, I've been trying to play heads up, and I pretty much play all stakes heads up. It's really wherever I can sort of get games and either keep raising the stakes or so forth. But I would say my main game is probably like 5-10 heads up. That's probably where I've logged most hands the past year, I'd say.
Do you desire to play in like the nosebleed games if you can? I guess most of the nosebleed games these days are PLO games, but do you desire to play the highest stakes heads up no limit games if possible?
I played the highest one, 100, 200. Played 100, 200, and 50, 100 a little bit. And I'm comfortable enough at those stakes, but I'm not super comfortable. It's kind of thing. Would I like to? Sure, but obviously they don't run very often. B, like a real bad transfer that could crush me or so really hurt me. So no, I don't think that's like a true goal or so. Would it be nice? Absolutely, but so would being the GM of a basketball team. That would be nice too. But well,
Now you're known as being one of the best coaches out there. Are you one of these guys who claims, if anyone comes to you, anyone off the streets who is willing to put in the time and effort, can you make them a winning poker player? Or are there just some players that no matter how much you work with them, they're just not going to get it and they cannot win?
I'd like to think that I could turn anybody into a winning player. So that said, I don't think both my own skill set and my mentality, I wouldn't even be a good sort of teacher, an absolute novice beginner. A lot of things that I talk about sort of, either lesson one or right off the bat with students, it would take a while to get to that point. So do I think I'd be equipped to handle that? Sure. Like, I can adjust, adapt. That's certainly not my coaching strength. My coaching strength is certainly turning a marginal player into a good player. So going from the losing player who's never really played before to like break even or slight winner, I would like to think I could do that, but that's not really what I do, and B, there are other people who could do that a lot better than me. So look elsewhere.
All right, what's in the future for you? You have any books? Are you gonna try to bank a big bracelet? What are you looking for poker wise?
Well, being in a tournament would be fantastic. And I played a bunch of, both WPT stuff, World Series events. Well, I didn't really actually play that many this year. This summer was kind of disheartening. I didn't make a single dinner break. It was just like, painful loss after painful loss. The tournaments kind of sucked my soul out to an extent. It's sad. And then the times when I build up a chip stack and then just blow it, it just frustrates me. So yeah, I do think though they're appealing in the sense that the so-called making a deep run, which would be amazing. I guess would certainly kind of relight my fire in that sense. It would be nice. I don't think I'm going to stop playing tournaments. It's nice to be able to just play them when I want. Of course, I'm not like leaning on that because who knows if that will happen. So in terms of the near future, I'm getting for basketball season, doing a fair amount of work on that kind of thing, and just hopefully find a house to buy that I like, and then I can move on because that's been taking up most of my time.
Very nice.
Where are you looking to buy? Where are you looking to buy exactly?
Either Boston or Cambridge, or Brighton, Boston, right around sort of the immediate Boston area. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I've lived here for the past 3 years, so I'm very comfortable. Great neighborhood. I just I feel at home basically.
Nice. Well, look, I mean, you've built a pretty cool life for yourself. You're playing poker whenever you want. You're coaching whenever you want. You're about to buy a home. So all things are very impressive. You're sort of surrounding yourself with some pretty cool things. Yeah, definitely. So thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. If people want to get in contact with you, either for maybe coaching or they want to check out your videos, obviously Lego Poker, how can they? What's the process there?
I'm actually not coaching one-on-one. It's all just the group stuff. But the best bet is just visit legopoker.com. I'm BobboFitos there. I'm on 2+2 constantly as well, so PMing me there works fine as well. I'm pretty good about returning PMs. So, yeah, that's probably your best bet. Definitely check out Lego Poker, though. Good, very, very good instructional videos. So, there you go.
Very nice.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate you joining us on the Poker Hot Seat, and we will see everyone next week.
Peace.
Thanks for having me on.